series. Tlingit Kleinach Dush Kla Yuchat Duetzauk, Dleka Kleinach J Zeller Yuchat Duetzauk, Ach Nachatsati Kagwantan Ayachat Deshitan Yadi Ayachat. Thank you for joining us today as part of Sealaska Heritage Institute's lecture series. Sealaska Heritage Institute is a native nonprofit dedicated to perpetuating and enhancing Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian cultures of Southeast Alaska. I have that on my... Sorry. I had the live chat. Where was I? As a nonprofit organization, Sealaska Heritage couldn't do our work throughout Southeast Alaska without donations. If you would like to donate to Sealaska Heritage, please visit sealaskaheritage.org/giving. Eagle Shark Tlingit Master Carver Wayne Price is a career artist and a professor of Northwest Coast Art at the University of Southeast Alaska, Juneau campus. Wayne's traditional Tlingit names are Ayanki and Kajis Yudzi Ach. He belongs to Tushit of the Wushkitan clan of Cake and is a child of the Raven Frog Hit of the Ganachkadi clan in Kluwak. Oh my God. Wayne will present on his navigation of professional Northwest Coast arts practices. He will share motivations, inspirations, and goals to provide a framework on why he chose the career pathway of a Northwest Coast artist. He will lead his listeners along his journey and highlight key steps taken to be a viable artist, including education, training, and the supports and planning guides along the way. Please silence your cell phones at this time, and as a reminder, there'll be an opportunity for questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's good to see everyone and everyone that is zooming in. Hello, I can't see you, but I know you're there. Welcome. Welcome to halls that I remember very well here. All the ads work that you see on the walls, all the result of me. And I remember quite well when I held my ads in Rosita's face and I said, "It's the foundation of our whole culture." And she said, "Okay," and told me to ads the whole thing. And I was 35,000 square feet later. We turned it into this beautiful clan room and artwork that is going to stand guard for a long time. Those were good years. I've had many, many, many good years. And I thought that I would tell my story from way back in the very beginning of my career. I remember watching my dad do artwork, and he worked out of Alaska Indian Arts a long time ago, and that business was a gathering place for a lot of carvers, and was already going very well when I was just a young kid, sweeping up wood chips, raking the lawn, mowing the lawn, hauling the garbage, making the coffee. All the things that a person would have to do when they first start out. And, it was watching my dad carve, and that was my interest. I said, that one I really liked. I really enjoyed to see the wood chips and the smell of the red cedar or the yellow cedar and turning it into a beautiful piece of artwork that was admired by many all the way through time. You know, our culture and our history goes back millennia, and through the whole millennia of time, we've had our art. We've had our connection with wood. And that is a real deep, deep connection. It goes to our DNA, I believe. And, you know what, it's a tribute to what I've done, but I give credit to all the legion of artists before me that dedicated their art, their time, and their skill that was left behind for us. And, you know, I always emphasize to all my students is you got to look at the old stuff, look at the pictures, go to the museum, see the original art, look at the old stuff first, and you know, get your foothold in the door. And my dad was slow, and he was a real meticulous artist, and it resulted in him not working at Alaska Indian Arts anymore. He was too slow. And during those days, it was all about production, because the cruise ships were coming in and the Chilkat dances were going, and I became a Chilkat dancer. And Carl Heinmiller had Boy Scouts. He was in troop number 12, or Eagle Scouts it was called. Well, they won jamboree, big national jamboree with they built a wooden bridge, and all of them happened to be Tlingit. And I think Bill Thomas was one of them way back then, and there were a handful of people that were Boy Scouts in that group during that time. Well, they won national, and you know, it was that connection with the wood. And on coming home, 1957, I believe, it was decided to promote the artwork, and it was a gathering place of a lot of artists, so that by 1962 it was pretty well established. They'd been going for several years. I think Bill Holmes and Carl worked together for quite a bit, so they had the best of them days during that time, and which meant when me, a little 12-year-old coming up, got to see the greats, Leo Jacobs, Ed Casco, John Hagan, Clifford Thomas. Jenny Lynn Smith was from California, and she was some of the first female artisans to be accepted in the Northwest Coast art during that time. You know, and this is the early 60s, and she's still around. I always let her know what project I'm doing. I stay in touch with her. And Nathan spent some time there, and then he moved on to Ketchikan, and I missed him being involved at the AIA, and I came in after he had migrated to Ketchikan. And you know, if you can believe it now, my wife and I, we own the original Alaska Indian Arts in Haines, Alaska. It's my house. So now I actually own the house I learned how to carve in. And it's like full circle. It's pretty good because I walk in the halls of history there with my upbringing, and wasn't an easy one for little old Wayne. The most calm in all the storm of growing up was at Alaska Indian Arts, and being around the art and the formline and the carvings, Leo and Ed, and they didn't take long. I gained deep respect for what they were doing, and of course I wanted to be involved. And that didn't come easy. I had to clean the shop and empty the trash and mow the lawn, and we used to clean up the garbage along the highways, and it was an MDTA program, $2.50 an hour, big money. And we get paid cash money for the Chilkat dancers, and back then there was like 3 shows a day, and that was making good money, man. I figured it out pretty fast how we're going to get along in this program. And but what was going on was you got to look at the history as a whole. And I believe they were all artists before AIA. They'd already been carving, but it wasn't all in a group. They weren't all established under one roof, but they were doing art here, there, and everywhere. I call it art on the kitchen table. There's a lot of art made on the kitchen table, and you're coming from a time where the residential schools were still pretty fresh, and the negative, trying to, make kill the Indian and save the man. Those were not good history, but through those dark times, there were still carvers. There's a wonderful, what's her name in Whitehorse? She was a carver, and at a time when women didn't really do the carving, it was a men's kind of thing. And her grandparents didn't want her to be taken by the boarding school, so they took off into the bush, and they stayed out there. And because she was the only one around, and her grandpa knew the carving, he taught her. And what's her name? Smith? Yeah. Kitty? Yeah. And you can see her carvings in the museum in Whitehorse now. And that could have been the finest of threads of keeping it alive in our whole culture. I'm trying to emphasize how threadbare that was then. By the time I came in, it was already on a resurgence, and it was starting to about small. There was only a handful of us artists. We all knew each other, and we could all count each other on one hand. And but we were doing art, and I figured out the entrepreneurial side really fast, and made some pretty career choices that this is what I wanted to be doing when I grew up. And pretty soon I was leaning on the broom, watching the carvers all the time, watching Leo and making sure they had hot coffee and stuff. And I remember those days very fondly of the time. And of course, they were noticing that I had a keen interest, and they didn't just jump right away. They let me do some drawing, which meant I didn't have to mow the lawn, and that was the parade ground in front of the top row housing in Haines. That was 9 acres, man. I mowed the whole darn thing. Now, it was a push gas-powered mower, and I'd start at the top end, go all the way down one, turn around all the way back. By the time I got to the bottom of mowing that lawn, it was time to mow it again on top. True. and that was the beginning, and they finally let me hang around, and I set up a bench, and 6 months of drawing, 6 months of formline before I could even make one chip. And Leo was very adamant about it, and I'd show him, and I still use this with my students today. He says, well, a lot of room for improvement. And you know, he'd be telling me that every 45 minutes, because I'd do some drawings and go check it in, and but it was 6 months of formline, which I believe should be done. That the art formline, in its complex as it is, takes a long time to grasp to what the primary is, what the secondary, tertiary is, and then the negative space, and then you have all these options of pinstripes. You know, in the form line, the pinstripes was a statement of quality, and I'm very adamant that hang on to the pinstripes around the ovoid. Add pinstripe into your form line. You know, that's something that was kept alive way back when, and it was important because you can see all the massive bentwood boxes that are in the museums. The museum in Vancouver has a lot of bentwood boxes that were made right when the sailing ships pulled up, and the world was changing, and the Edenshaw and Captain Carpenter, it was called the box phase because the bentwood box was something that could be for resale, and they had to switch from whatever the system was before the ships arrived to after the ships arrived. You know, became a capitalist system, and you know, they do this and sell this and you get money. And Edenshaw and Captain Carpenter and the great artists that were back in that time, you know, he saw 95% of his whole Haida nation die from the smallpox epidemic, and he lived through that. And he still made top-notch art. And I couldn't imagine losing 95% of my population and even feel like making artwork, but he did. And they left this legacy of formline called the box phase. It's in the history. And what they left in formline is how it was before, during, and after contact. You know, a lot of the things, we don't know what they're, I have no idea. They have to tell me what the design is, because I don't know. But, whew, pretty crisp, pretty fine, and very well done. Top-notch quality all the time. They kept that standard going. And that's what I emphasize to all my students is, man, they never let nothing slow them down from accomplishing what they want to do and say with that form line, you know, go the distance, point to point, pin lines, cross hatching. It all plays a big part in what makes form line right. And, you know, there's a lot of modern going on, and everybody has feelings about it. I have mine. But what I tell my formliners is learn the old stuff first. Learn what was left. Learn what they did before the ships arrived. And then if you start to see it different, you're an artist and that's how you see it. That's what you can do. Well, that's fine. I can agree with it or I cannot agree with it. That's my choice. But learn the old original ways first, because you look at the history during those times and what was being done all around and everything that was going on, the big change that was happening, and they still hung on to that integrity of discipline. And I can't emphasize enough how important that is for today. You know, don't go down this path because it's easier. Our culture was never easy. There's nothing easy about formline. It's intense, and you know, and 6 months, I was ready to carve, and back then we had to make our own knives and knife handles, and I made my handles. I had a straight knife, a bent knife, and a sharp hook knife, and a real dull chisel. And back at the Alaska Indian Arts, they were doing silk screens, and some of them were, you know, I'd watch Leo and Ed carve these silk screens on immaculately close-grained red cedar panels that were, you still see them around. They're the Tlingit and Haida logo came from Nathan and John Hagan at Alaska Indian Arts. And, you know, I carved, that was my first project. You learn the V-cut, and you learn how to do the slant your knife and go around an ovoid. You learn how to read the grain, and if you don't, boy, you really pay dearly, because, you know, we're trying to do the best. And so I got my knives, and less than 45 minutes, I was heading to the clinic for my first round of stitches. True story. And that was the beginning. Of course, I've had many now. I've used up a lot of thread, but it's part of the game of becoming an artist when you're holding sharp tools. I have one of my apprentices, James Hart, helped me on the 2 40-foot spruce dugouts in Hoona, and I thought we'd ended his basketball career. I'm really glad we didn't. Yeah. Next thing I know, I seen him heading for the clinic, and his foot's hanging out the door, and blood flying everywhere. I'll let him tell that story. It happens. It really happens. And everywhere, all the apprentices and students that I've been blessed with, able to have an effect in their lives, I've shared my culture, wisdom, and knowledge with all of them, and will continue to do so. And so I think my apprenticeship was 9 years at the Alaska Indian Arts. Things were changing, and I was starting to get urged to go do something else, and I did. We did the friendship totem. If you go in front of the Haynes High School, there's a totem in the parking lot there. That was the last totem that Leo, Ed, and you know, the gang, Clifford, John Hagan, Channing. That was the last time we were all together. We had, there's a group of us, and that was the first totem that I got to work on, and where I actually had a section of the totem that was mine. I carved the bear's head and his paws. That was my very first big project, monument. And you know, I did a lot of small ones first. You start small, then you, as you get the vision, then you start thinking bigger. And once I went to monuments, that really took a big turn in my life. And I've done 28 totems in Southeast Alaska. They're all traditional totems. 6 of them are here in Juneau. And I'm working on my 17th dugout now. It's out at Tlingit and Haida Housing for GHF. And it's worth it to come take a look at that. If you find your way out towards Costco, stop by and see. And we had a successful steaming. Turned my hair white. But yeah, it's my 17th dugout. So I was recently talking with my good friend Nathan, who, when I left Haynes, I went to Ketchikan, and Nathan lined me up with adzing the floorboards out at Totem Bite Clan House. The floor needed to be replaced. So I always say my job starts from the ground up. And that was I had the square footage, very similar, but I adzed all the floorboards at Totem Bite back in the 1979. So, and they had a program up on Deer Mountain going on. You know, stuff was changing then. It was a lot of things where opportunities were starting to happen, and they had a program on top of Deer Mountain with the totems and stuff there, and chance to teach. And they had a gathering of artists then. Totem Bite, yeah, Totem Bite, and a lot of the great artists were there, and I was there too. And we had a mass carving class and a group, and it was same time that was starting to go on. They had an opening for repair and restoration of 26 totems in Saxman, and I said, I can do that. And I had no idea what I was doing. Don't tell them that, please. But I gave it my best, and I rigged up scaffolding around each totem, and I had ropes tied off so it wouldn't fall over. And I climbed up all the way to the top of all 26 totems in Saxman, and scraped the old paint, added new paint, put preservative on it so the totems would last a while. And the bid was for one summer, and nobody told me it rains in Ketchikan. It rains a lot in Ketchikan. The job took 2.5 years. But I did it. I saw it through. I did complete all 26 totems. And, 1982 started coming around. And for me, in my career, that was a banner year. And a lot of things happened. It was they were looking for artists, and I was selected to duplicate the Chief Sheikh's house post in Wrangell. I'm in my 20s, my early 20s, and I was considered high enough to attempt to carve those house posts. Sight unseen, I'd never even been to Wrangell. And got off the ferry and saw the house post, the original house posts from the 1740s, Kajace Duak, and oh boy. Leo had told me that if those opportunity ever comes up, that he wants me there. And I said, okay. But I had no idea what magnitude that artwork was, Kajace Duak. And when I first saw the original house posts from the 1740s, first off, I knew I'd bit off way more than I could chew. These were way better than I thought my capability was, but I always put my best foot forward, and I will keep going, and I didn't back away. And I was working with another artist, Steve Brown, non-native from Seattle, real good carver. He was right-handed, I was left-handed, and we both picked our best half of those house posts, and we carved our best half, and the job took 4 years. We also did 6 totems that were in the park out on Shakes Island, and there's a totem park that's downtown right across from the supermarket. I built the whole park. I used to go there, the park is mine. Back in them days. And those house posts and my chance to work on that project really set in motion the standards that I keep to this day for art, or Northwest Coast art. The totem and everything we did, we'd measure 50 times to make 10 cuts through the whole project. We never used no power tools. It was all done by hand. And we found out he was probably left-handed, and he adds those rows on are 1 inch wide. The rows of adzing on those house posts were 1/4 inch, and everything was adzed, and we did it, and it took a long time, but it really set. Kajace Duak did not let anything interfere with what he was trying to say with his art. back in the 1740s. He absolutely pushed to the ultimate limit of wood and art and vision and insight and telling a story. They are probably, in my opinion, the best woodwork of all mankind, before him and after. And it took us, group of artists, everything we had to try to match and do his work. And you can go to the Chief Shake's clan house out on the island. You can see those house posts now, and that's my hair. It's my hair on the house post. It was back when it was black. But, you know, we noticed that there was hair. I said, yeah, sure, I had a big mullet. Had to be cool, man. But yeah, it was an honor. Just go ahead and cut my hair and put it on the house post. And it's still there now. And, you know, during that time, I was gaining interest in dugouts, canoes, and lots of totems. I had all kinds of totems going on. And I'm doing masks, rattles, bowls, spoons, ladles, flat carvings. I was doing all the small bentwood boxes. I did it all. It was an entrepreneurial thing. The paddles, this is my paddle for the Jibba dugout, and that's a wind spirit on the front. I was in a sweat, and I asked the creator what my spirit helper was, and in the lodge, the wind blew my hair forward. I had a lot of hair then, and I interpreted that as my spirit is the wind. I can be calm, or I can be fierce, and I can come from any direction, and it just fits me really well. And that was, during that time was Austin Hammond's culture camp out of Chilkoot, and he was, I loved that man. And I got involved in my first dugout canoe. It was 18 feet long. I had a 14-foot skiff, and I ran from Wrangell to south end of Wrangell. There's a little island at the south end of Wrangell, and they told me that's where they got the trees for dugouts. And I walked through that little island, and I saw stumps that were not cut by a chainsaw. They looked like a beaver, and those are the original stumps that were selected for dugouts. And I got my first dugout, and somehow with that little skiff got all the way back to Wrangell. And the Alaska Marine Lines shipped from Wrangell to Haines, and at Austin Hammond's culture camp, 1980, blah, 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 I was able to start and carve my first dugout canoe. And that was another big change in my way of thinking. I love totems, but I do love dugouts. And 18-footer, we started it at Austin Hammond's culture camp, and wasn't able to complete it. We towed it to Skagway, and I was at Corrington's Museum on Broadway, and I had a tip can in front of my dugout project, and I was carving for tips and starved. Didn't do very well, but I was able to complete the dugout, and back when I knew everything. And a later look at it, I didn't know nothing. And it doesn't take long to find out. All you got to do is put it in the water. And it'll tell you exactly if you're going to be a boat builder or not. Back then, I wasn't. But we threw a bunch of rocks in it, and my brother and we posed for pictures too long in Skagway. We go paddling down the bay, and Skagway's an inlet. You got to get to the mouth of the inlet a certain amount of time. We posed for pictures too long in Skagway. We got 3/4 of the way down, tide changed, and that's when we found out the dugout canoe we were so proud of. Didn't even go up the waves. It just plowed straight through. Balloon filled full of water. And so my brother and I kept it afloat by paddling and praying and bailing water a lot. Because the next wave hit, boom, we'd fill up again. But we made it. We got around the point. And we paddled into the mouth of the Chilkoot River, and Austin Hammond and the Gay Sun Dance Group were on the beach singing as we paddled our dugout in. How cool is that? And to my knowledge, that was the first dugout back in the Chilkoot Valley in a very, very, very long time. And we made it. And we found out protocol. We couldn't just come to the beach, which I wanted to go to the restroom, actually. But protocol. And Austin is very generous with his time. An hour and a half later, he finally let us come to shore. But I actually donated the dugout to Austin's culture camp because I believed in this man. He had to secure the land at Chilkoot, and he did it. And that the Gay Sun Dance Group, that's what I remember in them days. And the little dugout now sits in the Sheldon Museum in Haines, Alaska, if you want to go see it. And it leads to the 28-foot Jibba dugout that I completed in 2014. And we're going to watch a little clip so you can see our first journey. And James Hart was on that journey. So we'll watch this clip. 2014, we paddled from Haines to Juneau for celebration. And we had no training, that's all. We threw it in the water and took off. And this is what we looked at.
When I started drinking warm water to help.
Questions and answers now.
Huh?
Question and answer time.
Question and answer time? Okay. I've been told it's question and answer time. Yeah. Yeah, must tell a good story, huh? Well, that was the first 100 miles on the Jibba dugout, and since that time to now, I've logged 1,400 nautical miles on the ocean with that dugout since 2014, and it's ready to do 1,000 more. So it's been an epic journey to go from that dugout, which was it worked, you know. It was actually, everything I did actually worked. And I've learned a lot more since that dugout. I could actually take it down and do it one more time. But that was the first one that actually was very successful in my adventures. And, you know, usually they were made and then they went right to the museum, and so I was 45 years old before I actually got to experience what it's like to have a dugout on the water. And the work that I'm doing now is I want to see young, happy faces and their experience in to have a ride in a true dugout. And boy, that's a big order. If you go to Thunder Mountain in the Commons, I'm also creating a 30-foot strip canoe that's all from up here that I believe is our future. We're building that one to this exact specifications as a dugout. And it is full of challenges, but each obstacle we overcome. And the goal was that if you sat in a strip canoe and were blindfolded, you would not be able to tell that you were in a strip canoe. You wouldn't tell the difference than being in a dugout. And it's getting harder and harder to get the old growth cedar. The dugout that I'm working on now is 475 years old. It takes 475 years to make a dugout. And our future has to include leaving the old growth for our future generations to have that opportunity. And spruce makes a good dugout as long as red cedar. And yellow cedar is the paddles. I also use spruce for paddles. It's very strong, very light. And as you can see, we can sail. Our ancestors have a history of sailing. A lot of debate of we had sails before. I believe we did. I believe we made the sails of woven cedar bark. And I've seen a black and white photograph of a sail that is made from moose hide. So, you know, we had to use what was around us, but we weren't afraid to put the sail up, and boy, that's the best. So, how much more time we got? 5 minutes. Oh, we got lots of time. I can talk about dugouts. Yeah.
Hi. Are dugouts the same as like a canoe that would be used in a canoe journey, like say from Alaska to Washington? Are they the same?
Tell me.
So is the dugout canoe, can it be used for a journey to Washington? You mean up and down the coast?
Are they the same as what the rest of the canoe families use? And that's what she's asking.
Is there a difference between the canoes? Explain the difference. There's the wooden,
Fiberglass.
fiber versus fiberglass?
There's the biggest error that's made with all the fiberglass that I've seen is they make them the same shape, but they don't try to accomplish the same weight. And they're all pretty light, except for the one people, those are, I don't know what those are, but I personally don't have much respect for fiberglass. I know they make a lot of it, but and I'm glad they're out there. But our culture and our heritage is with wood. It's our connection to our history is with wood, and I don't think we're gaining any ground by spreading that gap. I think we should bring that gap back together, and I spend a lot of time and effort training a whole new group now, so that when you're going to go talk to them to have an original dugout being made, and the effort should be made to have a real dugout. And I understand the fiberglass ones also put happy faces on the water, and and I wish them the best, but I would definitely recommend, it's like 6 months of formline, which at the time for me, that was a long time. But I would definitely recommend to make the effort to stick to the wood, stick to the trees. I think there's a new era coming of smaller dugouts being created, and I think they're going to be made by each individual that's in my crew. And I've trained them. There's women and men. I've trained them every step that there is to know about making a dugout. James has gone through a dugout. I call it bark to the boat launch. But yeah, that's I'd highly recommend making the effort to go for the real true wooden dugout. Yeah.
We have an online question. As your fleet grows each year, how does this make you feel, knowing that more of our traditional yacht are on the waters again?
How do you feel seeing your fleet grow?
How's it what?
How does it make you feel to see the fleet grow?
Oh gosh. Well, back when I carved, that was my first dugout, that little one. The little 18-footer with that was its last journey. I put it back together, took it back, then decided we better leave well enough alone. But there's a dugout camp in Cake. There's a dugout camp. I seen the log here, and there's other camps that I've heard about of them trying to make dugout. And because I've done my 17th one now, and I'm still learning, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have no one say, this is this and that's that. I dived in and made just about every mistake you could ever make on a dugout. I've probably done it. But I learned each time. And a little bit of hints here, a little bit of clues there. There's a beautiful 31-foot dugout that's in the museum in Skagway, and if you get a chance to go see it, go check it out, because it's well worth it. And there's a lot of evidence, if you're a woodworker, that was left in that dugout that give you clues to help you make yours. There's another dugout camp in Sitka, and everybody's going through that learning curve now, but you have to imagine our history. There's 40 to 60 dugouts in front of every community in Southeast, all the way down to Washington and Oregon, and all the way up to Yakutat. And that was how we got around. And if you noticed in the footage, every time it went, we never took water. And I can tell the story of 6-foot waves and 40-knot winds with that dugout, and he was on that journey, and the dugouts do fine. I had a seasick crew and cold and wet and tired and unbelievably rough, and but the dugouts themselves, the ancestors designed amazing watercraft, and it is such a hard act to follow now. Don't let my boss hear that. I'm doing good. I'm having fun. But yeah, I think it's amazing to see the other camps springing up in Southeast, because for the longest time, my wife and I, we carried the torch for the longest time. And, you know, each one is the learning curve, and hopefully it leads to trying it again. So, okay?
Okay. Oh, I just want to say Atlanga Chish Wayne, SHI, if we could have a part 2 of this, and if Wayne would share his time again, I'd love. You were just getting cooking, and I felt like I could sit here for another couple hours listening. So thank you, Wayne, for your presentation, and I just wanted to also let everybody know how much of an impact your work has on everybody, and how much of an impact it's had on me, and it's changed my life. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
I remember your beginning. I was there. Should I tell him? No, I won't do that to him. Yeah, it's good to see the resurgence. It's in Northwest Coast Formline and the arts. There's programs SHI are doing that didn't used to happen. GHF's doing some wonderful things. Support of the canoe families, the real dugouts, and there's a big movement. There's the healing dugout that I'm working on, that each chip represents a life we've lost to alcohol and drugs in indigenous country. We had a wonderful ceremony out at Echo Cove, steaming the dugout, and we burned all the chips, so that we believe in mass prayer, that was done, and every time I do one, it always leads into another one. We haven't really slowed down at all since we got into this, my wife and I, and I look forward to the next one. And you know, does it help? Yes, I can absolutely say when you ride in a real dugout, it's going to change your life. I have not seen anything that touches your culture so deep and so direct as a ride in a dugout. And you can't have that same experience in the fiberglass. It's close, but our heritage comes from the Stantals in Southeast Alaska, and we shouldn't get away too far away from it. And
I did have a question about your canoe ceremony. I worked with Gold Belt Heritage Foundation at a recent market, and they were handing out cedar chips to write names on, and I was wondering whose idea was it for that, or is it a traditional thing?
What's that?
She wants to know where did the idea of writing the wood chips come from?
Oh, okay. Good question. My personal recovery from alcohol and drugs is 23 years now, and was brought on through Vision Sweat Lodge at the Pilchuck Glass School, and the creator told me that he wanted me to. I said, "What can I do? I'm just a carver," and said he wanted me to create a healing dugout and a healing totem. And I ignorantly asked, as I made a lot of dugouts, a lot of totems, how do you make a healing one? And it was the creator that keeps me sober that said that each chip represents a life affected by alcohol and drugs in indigenous country, and that of all the chips that come off it, healing dugout, there won't be enough. I've done 5 healing dugouts, and every time it is way too true. There's just so much affliction and addiction out there that we have to learn how to move away. That was never who we are. We never had that in our culture. And we got to learn to put that away. And for 10,000 years, our culture has taken care of us and taught us and showed us the way. We should never doubt it. Stay away from the mind changers and embrace the culture, the art, and there's lots of opportunity out there now to do that. You know, I'm watching my former students, still students, coming up, and he's doing this thing. I didn't even know he was here, but embrace the culture that took care of us for all time. It's a sure bet. I've enjoyed my full career embracing the art, and every day is like a new page. You know, there's just more to absorb and learn, and it's been a wonderful ride. I have no regrets being Tlingit and embracing the art and the culture.
Gunakchish, and thank you everyone for joining us today.
Gotta do it. Can I get a hoo-ha? Hoo-ha! 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 Whee! Gunakchish.
May I speak to you for a moment?
Yeah.
My name's Heather, and I'm a project assistant for SHI, the TCL program.
Yes.
And we have the CRE conference coming up, and we're wondering if you would be interested in doing the Totem Pole field experience. And you
The
go,
one I'm working on?
it's the Totem Pole Trail.
Okay.
And it would be like 25 people that you would